Before we begin today, we want to thank our newest patron, Kyle. Welcome to the team. Now, as you know, Becca is reading Persuasion for the first time in preparation for season 4, and we're going to be releasing her initial reactions on Patreon alongside each episode. That's going to be available at our $15 tier. So if that sounds good to you, head on over to patreon.com/podandprejudice to see how you can support us. And now enjoy this week's episode, the penultimate episode of season 3, talking about Emma Approved with Emma herself, Joanna Sotomura.
This is Becca.
This is Molly.
We are here to talk about Jane Austen.
We are here specifically to talk about Emma! Approved again.
And I think the last Emma of the season.
Oh, yeah, our last Emma episode of the season. That's insane. We've been talking about Emma for 2 years.
It's a long book. It's got a lot of adaptations. So we have a lot to go through. But listeners, if you're new here, I, Becca, have read many Jane Austen novels, watched many movies, and watched the Jane Austen YouTube content that is the subject of this podcast right now.
And I, Molly, am doing all of that for the first time through this podcast.
If you want to hear Molly read through Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility for the first time, you can listen to seasons 1 and 2 of this podcast, respectively. But that is what we're doing here today.
No, today we are talking about Emma Approved. This is our second time talking about Emma Approved on this podcast. If you want to hear us talk about the writing aspects of it and everything, you can check out our episode with Bernie Sue. But today we are joined by Emma herself, Joanna Sotomura. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
Oh, this is such a pleasure for us. We're both big fans of your work, and we're fangirling a little bit on our side of the country, just, having a good time. But why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about you and Emma Approved, as they've kind of gotten a sense from our prior coverage, but uh, give it to us from your perspective.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna Sotomura. I had the honor of playing Emma Woodhouse in the web series Emma Approved that came out a decade ago. And Emma Approved is a modern vlog style adaptation of Jane Austen's Emma. So, yeah, it's filled with all kinds of fun things and 2013 nostalgia.
Yes, definitely the 2013 nostalgia.
I was informed by listeners of the pod that I am too early to call Tumblr dead, but every time I watch the LBD and Emma approved content, it reminds me of my days as a Tumblr girly, both in like fandom and also in like that being where I picked out my outfits, like where Emma was posting, basically.
Oh, man, Tumblr was such a fun God, it feels like a time capsule. Yeah, it was the place that I would go to right after an episode aired to look at all the fan art for Emma and just, like, geek out myself, so not RIP Tumblr, but, the memories.
Apparently, the youth are on it again and like doing all sorts of fun stuff with fandom and fan fiction again. So, like, it is alive, back alive now in 2024.
Oh my gosh, it's vintage.
Yes.
Vintage internet.
Exactly.
And you are in life, you're an actor, is that correct? Is that what you are still doing?
Oh, yes. I am an actress. I live in Los Angeles, California. I just finished an incredible project that was shot in Japan for 6 months and got back last year and had a baby. So I guess I'm an actress slash mom.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was wild. It was the biggest thing I ever done career wise and I guess life wise. So it's been a crazy 2 years. Yeah.
Wow, congratulations. I mean,
Thank
Japan
you.
is incredible, but motherhood just
Oh yeah.
all around. So, speaking of mothers, Jane Austen, the mother of literature.
Nice. Yes, nice segue. I love it.
Yes, I'm famous for incredible segues on this podcast. No one has any notes ever. So, whenever we have a new guest on the podcast, we always like to ask a few questions about their relationship to Jane Austen, starting with, what is your relationship to Jane Austen?
So I kind of feel like Molly thrown into a Becca world. When I first got cast as Emma, that's when I saw that there was an entire like Jane Austen planet that I had no idea existed prior to the series. And so I tried to do my homework very fast and just realized how deep and rich this fandom was. So yeah, I kind of got just thrown into it via Emma approved.
My heart did a little flutter when you said you were a Molly in a Becca world. Love us as analogies for that. So, since joining the Austen fandom, what is your favorite piece of Austen content?
Okay. I love this question because Lizzie Bennet Diaries and Emma approved because I'm incredibly biased. And then I was thinking of what adaptations I like. But, and I hope the Zoom is working because I have to show you guys this. And I know you can't see it on the podcast, so I will describe it. But can you see this at all?
I love those.
So it is like Little Miss Austen, like a My First Jane Austen book. And Dan, who plays Harriet in our series, actually gifted this to my daughter, and, like, it's just so cute. So, like, I'm sure there was, like, a much more sophisticated answer, but I was like, I can't not say Emma, like, emotion book. So it's like, Emma is excited. And then you're gonna oh, hold on. This is my favorite one. Harriet is sad. Isn't that funny? And then, like,
Oh my god, I'm
yeah, Mr.
obsessed.
Woodhouse is bored.
Oh my god.
Mr. Elton is angry. Yeah, so it's all the characters, and then, Mr. Knightley is love.
Wow.
It's just so cute, and it was and the fact that, like, Diane bought this for me, who's my sweet Harriet, just, like, makes me wanna get so teary because she's one of my dear friends to this day, and this just is, like, the most incredible thing. It doesn't get any better than Little Miss Austen.
Oh man, that warmed my heart so hard right there 'cause, we've had a lot of answers to this question, and we have seen a couple Austen picture books, but they just getting the youth involved in enjoying Austen work, even at such a young age is so special, especially having Harriet gifted to Emma's daughter is, like, particularly special. That's just lovely. So, that is in the pantheon for my favorite answers to that question right now. So, that just made my night.
Oh my gosh, I'm honored. I'll tell my daughter. She's 3 months, but I'll let her know.
Oh,
So, I'm sure she'll be like, "Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm very popular already."
I'm an inspiration.
Yeah, and then she'll spit up on herself,
Yeah.
as she's wont to do.
Who among us hasn't? So question number 3 is which Austen character do you relate to the most? And if it's Emma, because that's who you played, that's totally great.
Well, it's funny because in the beginning of filming Emma and shooting this, getting to know her in the world of Austen, I was like, I'm nothing like Emma. I care a lot about my friends so much that I want to get involved more. And, I love just gossip and hearing and then I love fashion and material things. And then I started realizing, like, oh no. The similarities are quite obvious. And I think Bernie actually called me out on that too. He's like, "What are you talking about? You're exactly like your character." And I was like, "Ah, sure. I'll take it." Which made her so easy to play. But yeah, it's hands down, it's Emma Woodhouse, and still to this day, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way, which is, I guess, very honest or very Emma answer to say.
Honestly, the most Emma part of that answer was starting with, "I'm nothing like Emma," because there's a genuine plot line where she's like, "I am nothing like Mrs. Elton," or in this case, Caroline Lee.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, it's
exactly.
so Emma.
To be fair, also, Bernie's response was Emma/Frank Churchill for himself, so there you go.
Oh, totally. He said that for me from day one, like, I like this character so much because I am this character. And as an actor talking to your show creator, you're like, "Oh, that's not intimidating." Great. Well, I hope I do you/Austin proud. Jeez,
Yeah, no pressure.
right?
So, final question in our Austen portion of the conversation is what's your hottest Austen take? So, for example, one big one we get is like Lydia is a tragic, misunderstood figure in her
Mm.
time. But it can be whatever hot take you have from Austen.
Yeah, it's just that Emma's a philanthropist and, just a true everyman, I think. Actually, I say that jokingly, but if you really kind of think about it, and I think you guys touched about this like in your Bernie podcast, and I was like, I kind of stole my answer. But like she is a part of a little bit of all of us that's just a little louder and more outspoken and brasher than like society would allow us to be right now. But I don't know, I adore her. And then another Austen, just general hot take, which I guess is kinda, like, summed up in your guys' podcast, is that she's a really, really fun author that everyone can relate to and get in touch with, and she's incredibly accessible, and I think there's sometimes, like, an intimidation with reading any kind of literature that's just been around for so long and has such a staunch fan base because you feel like you might not understand it or it will go above your head. But when you actually get into it and you read it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so relatable to my friend group now, to my crush that I hate, but I think I kind of like, or it's an incredibly accessible author. So yeah, those are my little Austen takes.
I cannot agree more.
It's funny, I had a friend recently tell me she was, like, trying to get into reading more classics this year, and she started on Jane Austen, and she was like, "I'm finding it really dense to get through Pride and Prejudice. Do you have any suggestions?" And I was like, "Well, do I have a podcast for you to listen to as you read along?" And so she's reading through Pride and Prejudice with our podcast, and she's like, "Oh, okay, I'm getting it. It's fun."
Well, that's so wonderful too, and the thing that I realized with shooting Emma Approved, and again being thrown into the Jane Austen world was like, people want to share. They want you to get excited about Jane Austen too. There's really no from what I've had the fortune of seeing, like, gatekeeping. It's more of a community that wants to just, talk about what characters you relate to and this tense love affair or any of her other fun subjects. But like, yeah, it's been a really, really cool world to get to be a part of for these past 10 years.
Yeah, the Jane Austen fandom I've found coming in similarly to you with no experience in it is a very open, accepting community compared to some other fandoms because Becca and I are both huge nerds, and so we're in other fandoms as well. And there are some fandoms that I'm a part of, for example, no hate to the Star Wars fandom, but like I am a huge Star Wars fan, but they are very gatekeepy, and I don't like that part of them, and I'm like, I just, like, wanna have a good time, and I think that's what a lot of Jane Austen fans are like, if you're just here to have a good time, like, good, come watch the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, have fun with us, like, you don't have to, like, be into historical costuming, but if you are, that's awesome, and we welcome you. So I love that response.
Yeah, we have a lot of friends in the, podcasty world, and they do a lot of the same content we do in different, like, areas, different literature areas, and we are, I think, so lucky by comparison because our fans are so sweet to us. We don't get hate mail, we don't get insults. When we get something wrong, they gently correct us. It's the nicest community to be a part of, and our fans are just very, very open, to welcoming new people, so it makes for a great fandom, I think, personally.
Oh, completely. And I mean, we had the pleasure of going to a lot of the different conventions back. Remember when those were like super hot in like the mid 2010s, like VidCon. I mean, maybe they still are. I don't know, but like, uh,
PodCon, VidCon.
yeah, exactly. And going to those and just seeing like the art that's created for the Jane Austen everything, and just the kindness that they had too. Because following the Lizzie Bennet Diaries was very scary, which I'm sure we can get into later too. But just seeing the kindness that came along with a lot and the warm welcome that came with Emma Approved was just something you don't really see every day with follow-up series, so it's very lucky.
That's actually a great segue to our first question about Emma Approved, which
It's
is
not as good as my segue, but
not as good
whatever.
as not as good as Becca's segue, but, so how did you first get involved with Emma Approved? What was that process like? Were you already a fan of Lizzie Bennet Diaries? Yeah, just tell us about that.
Sure. So, I got an audition for a new web series that was following a very successful series, but they didn't really tell me what it was, so I couldn't do that much research, which, being the person that I am, helps because I tend to get incredibly in my head and talk myself out of a lot of things. So I got the audition with like some dummy sides, which just, sides from some other thing. And I don't follow instructions very well, as you saw with setting up my system here. So I didn't read that it was like the lead of this series. I was just like, what a fun little character to just kind of throw away and go to my next audition and, go to my day job and woohoo. And then I guess I did really well. And I guess that was pretty Emma-y, Emma energy. So Bernie, and the rest of the producers liked me and they brought me in for the callbacks. And those, they gave me the actual real sides for Emma. And I saw it was the lead and I was like, oh, no. Oh, the pressure. But again, it was like, I'll just have fun and throw it away, and if they like me, they like me, if they don't, they don't. But I like me, which again, is, I guess, very Emma, and, did great in the audition and, booked the part pretty soon after that, and then I got to read with a lot of the other, actors and do chemistry reads with them, which was so exciting because when people walked in the room, you're like, "Oh, that's Harriet. Oh, that's Mr. Knightley." Like, "Oh, easy." So that was really wonderful, and I think Bernie saw me in another series that I did before called Video Game High School, and I guess that character kind of had some Emma energy too, so he brought me in for Emma Approved, and that was, yeah, that was pretty life-changing. That was so special. That was one of the best auditions I've ever had.
Were you the first cast in the series too?
Yes, I was. But, yes, I was. I was the first cast in the series, and then I read with, like, I forget how many Knightleys, which is really incredible because they all were so different.
Mm.
And actually, James Brent Isaacs came in to read as a Knightley too, and his audition was fantastic, but, yeah, he was much better in the role that he ended up booking. And Diane was another one. She walked in as Harriet, and we're like, "Oh, her instantly."
Oh, she gives off perfect, like, doe-eyed, fawn walking through the forest in a perfect Harriet way.
Oh, and that's exactly how she entered the room too, and she was just such a sweetheart and so much fun to work with. All of the cast was almost exactly their character and just so much fun to banter with. And even though we couldn't really go off script because Bernie wanted to obviously stick with, the awesome literature and story beats, behind the scenes was just like a giggle fest. So yeah, that's how I got involved. Oh, and he also, after I booked it, Bernie brought me in to be like, "Hey, I just wanna let you know this is following this big show called The Lizzie Bennet Diaries," to which I said, "Cool, what's that?" And he was like, "Okay." So he showed me some stuff and was like, it was a big thing and it's gonna be hard to follow that. Oh, hold on, I'm getting a phone call. Oh, wow, we just won an Emmy.
Oh my god.
I'm sitting there like, again, as someone that tries to be like, "Hey, you deserve to be in the room, you deserve this." I like me, so who cares who else likes me? In that moment, I was like, "Oh, no." I mean, that's great for them, but then that's wonderful, and I'm so happy, but, like, "Oh, buddy, and I'm the lead of the show that has to follow that. Cool, let's go." So, that was a fun day.
Oh my god. That's, like, fun and cool and so stressful.
Yes. Yes, it was.
I'm picturing now, like, being in the room with Bernie when he found out they won the Emmy.
Oh, yeah. That was great. And he handled it too. He was kinda like, "Oh, wow. Like, would you look at that?" So, whereas I think most people would just be, like, screaming and jumping up and down, I think he was very much like, "That's incredible." And meanwhile, I'm just, like, slowly melting into my 3-inch heels.
Oh, really quick tangent here. One of the things that I noticed about Emma Approved upon rewatch 10 years later is how many women are wearing heels. Like, we are just not wearing stilettos the way we used to. I wore heels constantly in 2014, and I was watching and I was like, I used to do that a lot.
Oh, yeah. And I think part of us, like, after the pandemic, we're like, "Oh, flat surfaces with flat feet? This is amazing." Like, mobility? Wow. Because I very much am the same too. When I look back at some of the Emma fashion, I'm like, "That was really fun." Uh, I don't know that I could wear that again, especially if, like, in an office setting.
I noticed that, this isn't a question we have written down, but Emma wore a different like, there's not a single outfit repeating moment in the entire series. I guess that's makes sense because she's a fashion blogger, but that was very impressive to me.
Thank you. Our costume designer, Jessica Snyder, was amazing, and she pulled really, really fun looks, and I actually really think I developed my style sense of style from doing Emma, because we would get the scripts that week. We would do a fitting on Friday. We would shoot Saturday, Sunday, and then the episodes would come out pretty shortly afterwards. So the Friday before was just like uh chunky necklaces, skirts, stilettos, different hairstyle choices. Like it was just so much fun while you're like trying to frantically memorize 75 pages to film the next day. So it was yeah, it was a fun ride.
Wow.
So, talk about, I guess, the process of filming vlog as opposed to, TV or other mediums, and what the process of filming Emma Approved was like.
Oh, sure. So the hardest thing about filming vlog style was just being friends with like staring down the barrel of this lens and pretending that that's the audience that I'm talking to, the video diary that I want to like leave as my legacy versus being able to just strictly interact with the other actors and forget that the camera was there. So that was a little tricky in the beginning. And then it got so easy that it was hard to not stare down the barrel of a lens on anything else that I filmed for a good while after that. But yeah, so we would get the scripts. One time we got it like a day before we shot. And these were chunky, big ol' episodes with mostly my dialogue and a little secret. So, we would actually have music stands underneath the cameras with our scripts there. And sometimes I could look down and pick up a line. There was one series of episodes where they gave us the script. I don't know why it was delayed, but they gave us a script like the day before. And this one was a big boy. This is like 85 pages. In my mind, it felt like 150. It was like 85. And I had to memorize it. I had a few hours and then we were filming Saturday, Sunday. So there's one chunk of episodes where Emma's like really pensively looking away a lot. Uh, and that's because I was desperately trying to find my lines. I won't say which one, but if you hunt around, you can probably pretty quickly be like, "Oh." But I would just like, talk to the camera, talk to the my co-star, and then just have to take a beat. Like find it. That was a really fun trick. So, yeah, that was great, and then, filming it was just so much fun. One of my favorite things to watch are the bloopers for Emma Approved because you can just it was just a fun, lighthearted set, but we worked really, really hard, but when we laughed really, really hard. Oh, and then after we would film, the episodes, we would go outside and shoot all of her lookbooks for the Tumblr, which was fun. And we filmed and we shot all in like the same location. So we tried to make like this wall look like New York or not, or, whatever. And then turn around and this wall's the beach and like this, like, so we did a lot with very limited resources. And I credit a lot of that to Bernie Sue and his just like crazy, brilliant, creative mind.
I love that. I was just thinking, back to the costumes for a second. I'm remembering from our interview with Ashley Clements, who played Lizzie in the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. She mentioned that for Lizzie Bennet Diaries, all of those clothes were their own clothes. Like they had to bring in their own costumes. So I'm just very I'm thinking about the glow up between LBD and Emma Approved and how now you guys have a costume designer and you have, like, different walls for different sets for the lookbooks. It's, like, pretty cool.
Yeah, we were super, super lucky. I mean, that was a huge part of Emma's character was to be able to be a true fashionista. And at the time, if they did use my clothing, she wouldn't have been as impactful, I'd say. Her, Tumblr would have been pretty sparse. So we were very, very lucky to get just all kinds of different looks, and Emma, for the time too, she did kind of weird things, like some weird blazers with different necklaces and dresses layered with, this pattern that I wouldn't think worked, but it does because she's Emma. So that was so much fun. Oh, also, I'm so excited now too because I haven't really thought about this stuff for so long that it's all flooding back, and I'm like, "And another thing." But because we filmed 5 episodes a day roughly, we would have to like change, do quick makeup changes, run back in, quick hair changes. So everything, yeah, every outfit, every hairstyle was coordinated and planned so that we could just execute fast for the 2 days that we had to film a month, which was just, you know, something my little 25-year-old body was happy to do. Now I'm tired.
Oh, yes. I mean, this came out when I was 20 years old, I think,
Mm.
and I recall watching it and watching it back, there's something so beautiful about it because the clothes that Emma's wearing are so bold and so chic for, like, very specifically 2014, and
Yes.
I get the sense of nostalgia for feeling so connected to that fashion, whereas, like, nowadays, I'm so grumpy about, like, certain things that are in style nowadays, but I, like, was watching this, I was like, "Ah, yes, I really connected to this, like, era of style." And Emma's like an encapsulation of that.
Oh my gosh, that's such a funny point. That no, such a great point too, because like that was the era of sock buns and chunky statement necklaces with peplum tops. You know, like it was very specific. And I think nowadays, sometimes it's like low-rise jeans with your crop top, and you're like, no, don't know.
Oh my gosh, I saw a meme that was it was a picture of someone's dress at the Oscars. I don't remember whose. Or there was like a couple of different peplum dresses at the Oscars, and it was like millennials are triggered right now.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Or you walk into, like, a store and you see slouchy boots or, or something else, and you're just like, "I thought that died.
Yeah.
Hello, old friend."
One of the things that's come back recently, it's subtle, but it's been like a very fight or flight, moment for me every time I see it, is that when 2014 was around, it like you see it in Emma Approved, it was very much about a thin heel with a pointy toe, like a narrow toe. Not a comfortable shoe, but very stylish in my brain, and now it's not only I like the chunky heels, it's much nicer on my foot,
Mhm.
it's a good situation, but the square like, toe to a boot is back, and I don't know what to do
No!
with that. I don't know how to process it.
It is?
Yeah.
Fashion gasp. I thought that one was dead. I thought that one was real dead. Wow.
Wow, it just goes to show how little I know about fashion and trends. I middle parted my hair recently. I got my hair cut with a middle part and everything to fit in with the youths, and as you can see, I already unmiddle parted it. Oops.
I actually was sitting there admiring Emma's, like, massive side part, like, "Ah, that era. You pulled it off beautifully."
Oh, thank you. Oh, and speaking of Emma hair, okay, and going back to, like, not realizing how strong the Lizzie Bennet fan base was and that they would probably wanna watch Emma Approve since it was this thing following, I didn't think to, like, get my hair colored all one color. I had, like, a really weird dye job, and I just was like, "It's a web series. I don't know, I'll just keep this." And then the one thing that I saw was everyone's like, "That hair. What is up with that hair?" And then you'll notice the next chunk of episodes, Emma's hair is, looking a lot better, but I was like, "Oh, people care, and people care a lot about this series." I hear your notes, and I'm not gonna take it personally, and I'm gonna go buy a box of Clairol and dye my hair because damn, that was crazy.
Oh my god. Wait, I'm just in such shock because I literally there was at some point I never thought that that your hair looked bad, like, it always looked good, but I turned to my girlfriend and I was like, "Her hair's a different color in this episode than it was in the last episode." She was like, "No, it's not." And I was like, "Yes, it is, I swear. I'm not I'm 100% sure." But we were on a time crunch, so we couldn't go back and check.
Oh,
Um,
I can confirm. Yes. Yes, it was. And that was because there was also, speaking of style trends, in that time, like, that weird, like, ombre hairstyle where it's like just dark to blonde. And I did that and then I thought, I don't know. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. But yeah, the first 8 episodes, Emma's hair is a little different. And then the next 8 episodes, it's really good.
it's so funny. I think that ombre look is also back, by the way, but
No.
we can
It is.
move on from the trends that are back.
It's called Blonde now, as in brown and blonde.
What?
What?
So they're just renaming things? Sure. Okay. Sure.
I would say we've gotten off topic on the fashion, but there's nothing more Emma Woodhouse than getting off topic on fashions, so this was a beautiful tangent. Going back to our questions, what was your favorite episode or episode arc is also an acceptable way to talk about it.
Oh, well, I loved the whole Maddie Bates Box Hill fiasco in both the book and in our series, 'cause it was just the first time I think I really got to flex as an actor, like, the real Emma Hart muscle and the real mistake that she made, and realizing the impact that that had, not only in Maddie Bates, but then with her relationship with Alex Knightley. So that was really fun and heartbreaking to shoot, and then the episode following with Harriet trying to, like, lift Emma up and give her the bear and the ice cream, and I got to just wear sweats and cry and, just be broken was really fun and kind of a relief after playing such a bubbly, high, confident character for the better part of a year. So that was really fun. And then, of course, if I loved you any less, I'll be able to talk about it more, the episode 70, the kiss.
Uh,
Yeah, that was so much fun, and filming that one, I asked, uh, Brent if and Bernie, actually, yeah, if I couldn't see the flowers, I wanted to see them for the first time in real time when we filmed them, so I could have, like, a real reaction. So that was a real reaction to seeing these beautiful flowers for the first time from Knightley, so it was just that one was just really touching to shoot, and then my other one that just made me, like, just kind of put a sweet bow on the whole experience was the crane one
Ugh,
with where Harriet's just, yeah, trying to pull in the cranes and they all fall, and we all made cranes.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
we were talking about this with the Bernie on his episode, and he was so precise about this and designating Lizzie Bennet Diaries as a sitcom and designating Emma Approved as a rom-com, and I think part of the reason that plays so well is that as a cast, you guys had so much chemistry, and you talking about how well everyone got along backstage and how warm a set it was really translates on screen because the story lives and dies by how much you care about these relationships, and you guys do such a good job making people care that, like, it's a really great build-up and payoff, and I will say on the Maddie Bates thing as well, you had a moment that always, like, gets my heart when I watch it where Knightley's leaving the room and you beg him to stay and it,
Ugh.
like, kinda the camera, like, cuts off, and I, like, remember being like, "Oh, it's real now." Like, this is sad.
Aw, well, thank you so much. The chemistry with everybody was just something that I don't think I've ever recreated in any of the sets or shoots that I've been on since, and it was just every single person working on that show was so passionate about what we were creating and had no ego and was just fun and down to play. So, I think that I'm happy that that translated. I really am. And then that scene that you're talking about too, where, Knightley's leaving and I'm like, Please don't go." There was a couple takes where, like, Brent flubbed a line, and so he's like, "Oh, wait, we'll take that back." I'm like, "No, I was right about to cry." Like, so even that scene shooting something that, like, heartbreaking and sincere was still fun because it was still just, us at the end of the day playing in that rom-com, and when I heard Bernie say that too in your last episode, I was like, "Oh, that makes total sense." That's exactly that, Lizzie being a sitcom and Emma being a romantic comedy, and I just it was so special, and I recently watched a few episodes too, just to remember it all, and was like, I feel like I'm right back on set, and I still feel that magic, so I'm glad it translates, I really am.
It really does. So, Emma is such a juicy character, and we've talked about this a little bit. You relate to her. She is a flawed woman with a heart of gold, and we love her. So, what did you find most challenging about playing her, and also what was the most fun?
Yeah, that's a great question. I so kind of touching on, what I talked about before too with the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, it was hard to follow that show and be cast as a character that is unlikable in the beginning. Like, she's not Lizzie, and she's not instantly, like, attractive as a character. She's kind of selfish and brash and arrogant, but still charming. So that was kind of a hard line to play and be true and honest with that character and not seek the audience's approval because I wanted them to like our show following Lizzie Bennet. So I had to just get rid of all of that and just play what the amazing writers had adapted for us. And they made it so easy, and they made Emma so clear, and all I had to do was kind of add me to it, which again, I guess is just my own spin on Emma Woodhouse, and that, created the magic that we call Emma approved. So it was, yeah, and the fun part about playing her too was, yeah, just leaning into that side of you that's just kind of like, well, I really don't think you should wear those shoes because they don't exude confidence. Like something that you wouldn't normally say in a polite social setting. And so being able to lean into that kind of energy was just awesome. That unapologetic energy. So yeah.
So that does lead in you were following up, Lizzie Bennet Diaries, and you were following up Elizabeth Bennet, who's obviously iconic,
Mm.
but you're also following up another iconic Emma Woodhouse made for the modern era in that you had the pleasure of playing off of Alicia Silverstone's Cher Horowitz in
Ooh.
Clueless. How did you differentiate yourself? Because your Emma is so distinct from hers, despite being a lot closer in time frame to that Emma Woodhouse than, say, the 1810s Emma Woodhouse.
Mhm.
So, what did you do to sort of separate yourself from Cher?
Oh, well, thank you so much. I think one of my biggest fears was people thinking that I was going to try to do a version of Cher Horowitz, who is a legend, who is like a beautiful Beverly Hills golden goddess. And Clueless is fantastic and untouchable. And so the best part of that was just not touching it. Like, I didn't want any part of my Emma to resemble hers at all, so I just let her go. I didn't rewatch it, I didn't worry about it. The only thing I was a little bit worried about was, like, they're both fashionistas living in the modern times, so but then that was it. I honestly just let Bernie take the reins and let the writers do their thing and just kind of focused on that, and then that led to Emma approved. So I'm actually happy that I didn't sit and think about that and worry about that as much as I probably should have.
Oh, I think your Emma is very different than Cher and in a great way. And I'm thinking about it now. This is like occurring to me as we're talking about this, but Cher's a teenager. She's a precocious teen.
Mm,
And your Emma of Emma approved is a woman in her mid-20s already sort of like having built herself up in business and is trying to like take over the world through PR and influencing.
mhm.
Yeah, also, your Emma and Knightley are not related
Oh, yeah.
by marriage, which is a great plus.
So Molly hadn't seen that movie, and when we watched it for the first time, she's like, "He's her brother."
Yeah, it was in the beginning, you're kind of like, they're not gonna, like, fall in love, are they? And then by the end, you're like, "But, I mean, look, they're so sweet together." And then you kind of forget the whole, like, flirting with incest thing. But, yeah, it was, yeah. I can't believe you've never seen Clueless before. That must have been so much fun.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun, and I mean, I love that movie, but I did not forget about the incest part. I am finding it very hard to, like, differentiate, but oh my gosh, just quick side tangent. I don't know if you're aware of this, but KT Tunstall and Amy Heckerling have collaborated on writing a Clueless musical that just premiered in London. Um, yes, and I can't wait for that to come to Broadway because I will watch the heck out of that.
That's fantastic. Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Yeah. So we saw that there was an Emma approved revival in 2018. Now, I haven't watched it because I clicked on it and I saw something about Anne Elliot, and I was like, that feels like it's gonna have spoilers for something that I haven't read yet, Jane Austen wise. But I'm curious if going back 4 years after the original or 5 years after the original Emma approved brought you any new perspectives on playing Emma or how that was different without spoilers. And Becca looks like she has something to say
Yeah,
about this.
just as a caveat, Molly has not read, or consumed anything having to do with persuasion,
Oh, okay.
so we're keeping her spoiler free on that story.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good to know. Okay, good to know. Yeah, going back and revisiting Emma, it was fun again just to work with Bernie and Brent and Dan, and it was different because we obviously strayed away from the original Emma, and we're trying to do a new thing and do it sort of mockumentary style instead of vlog style. And it was great. And I do really, really like the episodes that we did, but there's just something about the version that we created, Emma approved, that I think is just really, really special. And I think it was nice to put a bow on it and to see kind of where the characters are now. But I think leaving it where it's at is where I think it should be. I don't yeah.
That's very fair. I will say I loved revisiting the series, like, 10 years down the line, and I'm sure as now you've revisited it with us. What would you say about, the format of telling this story through YouTube? Like, as both a time capsule of 2014 and also, like, what are your reflections on that form of storytelling in 2024?
Yeah, I think it was so funny too, because at the time, it just seemed like the thing to do because vlogs were starting to get very popular, and there's some certain vloggers that were just, let you into their entire life, and it was so fascinating to watch their day to day, and so for Emma to do that just seemed perfect, especially since she was someone that wanted to, like, leave her legacy behind, and vlogs will never go out of style. Uh, so, yeah, so it's really sweet watching it back because like we talked about with the fashion and with everything else, it was like, wow, that moment in time, that 2013, 2010s to 2016, it just has a really special place in my heart, a little Tumblr place in my heart.
What you're making me think of a little bit is, like, Jane Austen wrote Emma as one of those perfect first encapsulations of sort of first-person narration
Mm,
and the unreliable narrator for a
mhm.
story, and there's something so perfect about the vlog format for telling that kind of story, like, particularly how it was done in the 2010s. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can edit it exactly like how you want people to see you. You can give yourself like, yeah, the good edit, someone else the villain edit.
And you can just spit all your thoughts about everybody into a camera, and then you kinda capture Emma's inner monologue through most of Jane Austen. But I guess my thought was, like, sort of reflecting on it 10 years later, do you have any sort of meditations on telling this story in this fashion?
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly to what you were saying. I think it's very much catered to how Emma sees herself and how she wants to be portrayed to the world so she can spew all of her thoughts and her plans of global domination to the world. And I don't know, I think nowadays too, I think people have a tendency to be very honest and open in a vulnerable way that I don't think we were as comfortable with back in the day. I think now there's a sort of acceptance to just really wearing your heart on your sleeve and not editing as much. And maybe that's just where I am at now, 10 years, as a new mommy with a baby who's trying to be more in her space and more vulnerable. So yeah, that's a very long-winded answer to I think a question I don't even know that I really answered. Sorry.
I think you totally did.
It was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, Emma approved, like, it's such a polished, or it starts out at least as such a polished thing that she's trying to do, like, she's documenting the best parts of herself,
Yeah.
well, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but, like, she really wants to get across, like, that this is something she's good at and this is what she's doing, and it's funny because when you were talking about your favorite episodes, you talked about the ones where Emma has fallen and made mistakes and is in her sweatpants crying and eating ice cream, because that's when you start as an audience, at least, to see her as human and see her as relatable, and you're like, "Oh, she's flawed, she's just like me," and that's where she really starts to become the lovable person that we know.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty nice place to end what has been a 2-year-long celebration of the book Emma by Jane Austen. For us, that's the end of our season 3. Joanna, I cannot think of a better guest to end season 3 of our podcast on. Thank you so much for joining. Do you want to tell the people where they can find you?
Well, congratulations on 2 years of Emma and your podcast. It's such a wonderful idea and such a creative podcast. I'm just more than honored to be a guest on it. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, and everyone, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Joanna Sotomura, and I will be on a new TV show coming out this year called Sunny on Apple TV, A24 on Apple TV. So be on the lookout for that. It's starring myself and Rashida Jones and a slew of just incredible Japanese talent. So
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's amazing, I can't wait to watch.
I absolutely will be watching that.
thank you so much. It's wildly different from Emma Approved, but it has a lot of similarities, so I hope you all like it.
Okay, I am so happy. I'm so excited for that. Okay, listeners, for next time, And for the next few weeks, we'll be releasing a little bit of bonus content, and then we might be taking a brief, very brief hiatus.
Like 1 week. Don't panic, everybody, but
We're gonna come back. I just need to finish Persuasion.
and I need to go on vacation.
Yes. So we haven't taken a break in the 4.5 years we've been doing the podcast, so we're just taking a little baby one. But, we have some content coming your way first. So get ready for all of that, listeners, and until next time, stay proper.
And always wink to the camera.
Yes!
Yes.
Let's all do a little wink. It's an audio medium, but I don't care.
We'll add a little wink sound effect.
Ding!
Thanks, Graham.
Perfect. Pod and Prejudice is edited by Molly Burdick and audio produced by Graham Cook. Our show art is designed by Torrance Brown. Our show is transcribed by SpeechDocs Podcast Transcription. For transcripts and to learn more about our team, check out our website at podandprejudice.com. To keep up with the show, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Pod and Prejudice. If you love what you hear, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/podandprejudice to see how you can support us, or just drop us a rating and a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.